Welcome to Attic Continues episode 284. What? 284 coming at you right now, live from the heat induced apartment of Staffa. And we got Kevin over here as well.
Yep. What's up?
So this is episode 284 of Attic Continues, a weekly podcast posted up every Monday on atticcontinues.com as an MP3. It goes up a little bit before that on youtube.com/atticcontinues as a video where you can see me just dying from heat. Crap, I didn't even fill up my glass full of water before we start recording. Great. I am your host, Staffa, and I already introduced Kevin. And this week's episode segments will include our main topic, which will be we're going to talk about some games that we really like, some of our favorite games that take place in medieval fantasy settings, whether we really like the games or we really like the world or both, probably both. But we're going to talk about those because Game of Thrones comes on tonight, and why not? Medieval fantasy. Let's do this. Just one quick disclaimer before we get going is all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, whether past, present, or future. Bam! Hashtag promote Staffa. That's how it works.
Yep.
So, yeah. And after we have our main topic, which we're about to start right now, we're going to have some announcements, and then we're going to have some news. So, main topic, let's do this. Let's talk about medieval fantasy games. And we're going to start this off by talking about Shadow of Mordor, because that game is awesome, because I know it's on both of our lists, right?
Yep.
There we go. I mean, that game is the best Lord of the Rings game, right?
I don't know. Maybe it's definitely up there.
It's better than that MOBA, that failed MOBA that they had, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, I don't even.
You don't even remember
it.
Yeah, they had a MOBA where you can play as Gandalf or like whoever, Sauron or Legolas or Gimli. Yeah, like there was a failed MOBA. This is definitely 100% better than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I mean Shadow of Mordor it brings out. I mean it doesn't have like a great campaign story, but it like brings out the world of Mordor with like the orcs and the orcs and the orcs.
Yeah. There were a few things that I mean, it was definitely really good, especially how they included the Nemesis system. That was definitely a huge improvement to how like dynamic stories get told in open world games. But I haven't actually beat the game. I kind of got stuck and at a part where I'm supposed to kill one of the war chiefs, but he's always got it. Always, no matter what I do, there's other generals that will come in the middle of the fight, and then I just get overwhelmed and I can't get past that part. So I haven't really played it in a little while, but
I've had that happen to me a few times where I'm fighting one nemesis, and then as the fight goes on, because the guy is so tough, other nemesi come in and like just make the fight worse.
Yeah.
And then I'd have like 4 nemesi within the same battle, and each of them have their gang of thugs with them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good game.
Yes, Shadow of Mordor, love it. Kevin, something on your list. Let's talk about what the world of Morrowind.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say this should be pretty obvious, and the first game on my list is definitely Morrowind. Yeah, the Elder Scrolls series in general has been pretty good, but specifically Morrowind, because that was the game that kind of revolutionized my views on games. Um, Not so much in like I guess it came down to how games were perceived for me, and just the fact that you had so much freedom and the ability to kind of go wherever and do whatever you want and decide on how you wanted to complete the different tasks. And
I totally did not walk away to get water while you're talking.
Thanks for listening, Staffa. Which already knew what I was going to say anyway, because I've talked about it so many times. But yeah, I mean, then after playing Morrowind, I totally fell in love with the idea of video games as a career, and that's what kind of led my entire life path up to this point.
Yeah. Have you? Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the video that's been going around recently. That of the dude who basically reenacted stealing in Oblivion.
Yeah.
Like the person holding the camera picks up an apple, and the other dude's like, "Halt! You have broken the law."
Yeah.
And then it like zooms in on his face exactly like the same way that Oblivion zooms in on their faces.
Yeah,
that's the best video. Completely accurate to Oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't, it's not Morrowind, but still,
yeah,
the sequel.
No, yeah, Oblivion was also very good. Probably definitely my second favorite of the Elder Scrolls games.
You know, one thing that people have pointed out, like on Reddit, is that as the games progress, like, I mean, what was it, like thousands of years have gone by, the architecture of the buildings have like degressed. Like,
yeah,
it's like there's like one picture I saw on Reddit where it's like Morrowind, it's like this super fancy looking building, and then Oblivion, it's like less fancy, and then Skyrim, it's like a log cabin.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's kind of been the unfortunate truth of the games is that the sequels are not getting stronger than than the ones before them, and a lot of that does come to the city designs too. Like if you look at, I really thought Oblivion had some really good town designs, but then you go into Skyrim and all of the towns in there are really small, and they don't really have. Yeah, they're just like there's nothing exciting about exploring the cities in Skyrim. And maybe there's one or two different locations that are interesting, but once you go there once, there's nothing really drawing you back to them. And but like, you know, with Morrowind and Oblivion, the towns were really well designed, especially in Morrowind. And like you mentioned, you know, there were some really unique, I think, you know, a lot of the environments were unique in Morrowind just because it is fantasy, but it's not your typical Tolkienian type fantasy like Oblivion was, where it's like rolling hills and forests and all of that. But like in Morrowind, you had you know, mushrooms as big as trees growing around everywhere, and some of the cities were really different designs than what you would normally see in a typical medieval fantasy game or setting. But yeah, there's definitely been a decrease in quality and imagination, I think, as the games have gone.
All right, let's move on.
Yep.
All right. Next on my list are the Castlevania games. While a few of the later ones take place like either modern time or future, the majority of the games are medieval. And despite some of the newer ones being modern time or future, like it still takes place in a castle. You know, it still seems very medieval.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not I mean, like Castlevania, it's not the world that I'm more interested in. It's I'm more mainly the gameplay that I like more, and the stories aren't all that great either. I haven't played the rebooted one, the one that's just called well, it's what's it Castlevania. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called. Lord of Shadows, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really
Yeah, Lord of
played
Shadows.
Castlevania games.
Yeah, I haven't really played through that one. I mean, a lot of people compared the gameplay to God of War, but they say the story is actually very interesting with that one. Um, and I think it has Patrick Stewart doing a voice in there somewhere, maybe.
Oh, Patrick Stewart did a voice in Oblivion too.
Yeah, and he died like in the beginning, didn't he?
Yeah, he only has a few lines, but then
Because you can't afford Patrick Stewart.
yeah. It's like a total voice time of maybe 10 minutes.
And he probably did it from his own home too. Probably never left his home. But yeah, I mean, like Castlevania is more about the gameplay I enjoy, but I do like some of the level designs of Castlevania. Some of the monster designs are also very interesting. Sometimes you fight monsters that are like for one of the games, I can't remember which one. I think it was Harmony of Dissonance. Like this giant bat comes in, and it looks like that's gonna be the boss fight. But then this big hand comes in and smashes the bat, and then you're fighting this giant. Like his both of his hands are coming from both sides of the screen, and his face is like in the background, and you have to like hit his eyeballs or something like that. Like it's just it was an interesting design for them to like bring this giant bat. Like, oh snap, it's a big bat.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula. Okay. But then it's he just crushes the bat and you fight a giant dude. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it with Castlevania.
All right.
I also I'm hearing very good things about the Netflix series. I haven't gotten around to watching that yet.
Yeah, I've also been hearing good things about that. But same as you, I haven't started that at all.
Yeah. And it's probably going to get postponed since Game of Thrones starts tonight. And also, I haven't watched the latest season of House of Cards. So I'm Castlevania is it's not a priority for me right now as far as my watch list. And yeah, so let's move on. What's next on your list?
Second on my list is the Witcher games.
Oh, I heard of those games.
Yeah, they're small games. They're
made by an indie company.
Yeah, they are actually.
Literally.
Yeah. But yeah, the Witcher games are pretty great. I am actually going through reading the books, which came before the games, and
Witcher came before the games.
Yep.
Clever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I really like the setting of the Witcher series. Basically, the idea that this world has all these different kinds of monsters that have infested their universe. It's a really interesting idea about how that all happened in the first place.
So the world did not have monsters previously.
Correct. There was a time when there were no monsters, but there was a big cataclysm event, and
cataclysm.
Yep. And basically that brought these like evil spirits and demons and things like that into the world. And then the Witchers came about as people who were trained to specifically attack, not necessarily kill all monsters on sight. They were kind of just there to be contracted, bounty hunters, and contracted for specific cases. But yeah, like I have this compendium which is like has all the different lore of the monsters in the world, and going through all that stuff is really exciting. And I think Witcher 3 is definitely, in my opinion, the best game in the series, just because what they did was making it an open world, like an Elder Scrolls style game, but not having the complete freedom as in like how you build your character, because this is telling a story of a very specific person, and you have some variations of how you can change what you can focus on, like whether it's the magic spells or sword combat or using bombs and grenades and things like that. But just the vast scale of the world, and all of the side quests even are really good. Like, and they put so much thought and effort into designing the quests, and everything, even like the simple fetch quests that you might run into, are really well really well told stories, as opposed to just, oh, I need need you to find this flower and find 5 of them and bring them to me. Like, they actually have reasons for why you're doing that, and they build it into the development of every single character that you interact with. And some of the side quests are so good that and they're so expansive that a lot of them will take several hours to complete, because they're whole quest chains that can have huge ramifications on not just the quest itself, but also the rest of the main story. Just things that will get referenced to in the main story might be affected based on how you handled specific unrelated side quests. And so it's very intricate and very well designed, and and the scale is huge, and they put a lot of attention to the details.
I haven't played through Witcher yet. I mean, I played a tiny bit of Witcher 2.
Yeah.
Like every time I tried getting into it, something happened and I had to like leave the game.
Yeah.
Whether it's like job hunting or school or something, but like when I was preparing myself to play the second game, I was watching through the videos that they put out that like explain what a Witcher is and what happened in the first game and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And those videos are really cool.
Yeah, were those like the 2D
yes,
cell shaded style? Yeah,
cell shaded. I mean, it's hand drawn.
Hand drawn. Yeah, I mean, like that's style where everything is like really high contrast and there's clear outlines, and the lighting doesn't
looks kind of like sketches.
Yeah,
and like one of them was like kind of documentary style, where it's like a Witcher is this, and then like they start like ripping up his body and showing like the insides, like he has animal eyes. And like just, I mean, I know the way I'm describing it sounds very cheesy, but the way how they present it is actually really cool. And I'm like, I really gotta play this game. And then I start playing the game, and I'm like, oh man, this is a big investment, and I got stuff to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge investment. And if anything, I would say read a synopsis of the first game, because that one is definitely has not aged well. I
played like an hour of that, and I was like, I cannot play this.
Yeah, it's a very. I mean, there might be some people who really enjoyed it. I liked it, but it is a very a niche style in terms of how it handles combat. And also, just from a technical standpoint, there were a ton of issues with it, just because back then CD Projekt Red was not a very big company. They were very, very small. It didn't have a budget, but they were trying to make
it seemed like they got like some really cheap mics, like cheaper than my Blue Yeti mic. And went to Best Buy, got some really cheap mics, and told their friends, hey, I need you to attempt to make an American accent and read these lines. And that's how they got the voice acting.
And the funny thing is that CD Projekt, before The Witcher, they were only doing, like, they were doing ports for other companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any of their ports have really done well. I think anytime they did a port, the game ran poorly and there were a lot of complaints about it. So it's really cool to see how, like, where they are now and where they came from in terms of their size. Because like I still have a picture on my desktop of their very first E3 booth, and they had like a small little round table with a computer on it running The Witcher, and they were borrowing that space. I think it was EA's space that they were borrowing. Basically, they just had one table, one chair, and one computer. That was their entire E3 booth inside the E3 area. Inside of the EA area.
Well, that's pretty cool that they were able to get like that deal going with EA.
Yeah. So they had exposure with just one little station, and seeing where they are now, they're like a massive. They have a much larger budget.
Did EA publish the console version of Witcher 2?
Actually, I am not sure.
Because I know it wasn't them that published the console version of Witcher 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, didn't it also have like a different name? 360 Enhanced Edition. That's what it was. And let's see if IGN can tell me what this is. Publisher Warner Brothers. Oh, okay. So it wasn't EA. It was WB. All right. But yeah, let's move on.
Yeah.
All right. Next on my list is the Legacy of Kain games. Legacy of Kain was pretty cool for its time. I mean, like the very first Legacy of Kain game was like a dark Zelda game, similar to the the top down like Link to the Past and the original Zelda. That type of top down Zelda game, and it's very similar to that. Though it wasn't as refined. Because I remember, like, his sprite was actually pretty big, Kain, and like when he swung his sword, it was like very wide and it was very awkward, compared to Link in A Link to the Past, where it's very you know exactly where he's hitting, like right in front of him, and. It wasn't the same with Legacy of Kain. At least from what I remember, it was kind of sloppy, but the world was actually really cool. It was a very dark world where, I from what I recall, like there was no vampires before Kain. Kain was the first vampire, and it was just his story as to becoming a vampire, and then. And then you have Soul Reaver, that you play as Azrael, and Kain is jealous that this guy has evolved to become a better vampire than him because he has wings, and he's like, "What the heck? You have wings and I don't?" So he like threw him down like this maelstrom portal, and it like basically it's dissolved his body, but he survived and became a Soul Reaver and became a vampire of souls rather than blood. But I mean, like the worlds were very cool. They're just very dark worlds. The characters are both very interesting, and voice acting is very good in both those or in all those games. Even the first game on PlayStation had a lot of voice acting, despite it being an older PlayStation game with very bad CG cutscenes. But I don't think those games hold up today, and also the series got worse over time. Like the gameplay wasn't as good in the later, like Legacy of Kain 2 had this really awkward beat 'em up combat system, and then there's the last game, Legacy of Kain Defiance, where you play as both Kain and Azrael, and you switch between the two characters, and it was like a really bad Devil May Cry, like nowhere near as fast, just a slow and clunky Devil May Cry. It just wasn't good. So I mean, it's unfortunate that the series, you know, it's you either die a hero or live long to see the villain, and it lived long enough to see itself become the villain. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But let's move on.
All right. Next game on my list is Baldur's Gate, and pretty much any of those classic CRPGs that were made on the Infinity Engine, like Neverwinter Nights.
I appreciate that you pronounced it correctly, because I hear a lot of people say Baldur's Gate.
Oh,
it's like that's obviously an A. It's not O. Not Boulder Gate, not Big Rock Gate.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say Baldur's Gate, but and I guess that's
lose your hair gate.
Yeah, but I used to play both the first and the second Baldur's Gate a long time ago, and actually I have the enhanced editions and kind of have been wanting to go through those again. But all of those Infinity Engine games basically took D&D rules and turned them into a digital adventure. So in the background, all of your actions are rolling dice, and it's just calculating the probabilities of that, but it kind of hides it in the background, so it seems like you're playing a little bit more action heavy game, but all the dice rolls are happening in the background. But besides that point, the storytelling in those games is really good. Actually, I think one of the games that is always considered to be like one of the best in terms of story is Planescape Torment, I think that one. But yeah, like those games are really good. Actually, there's a recent one that is called Pillars of Eternity that Obsidian Games worked on.
Kickstarter for that one.
Yep. Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter for that, and it takes the same idea, although it's not set in a D&D universe. This is something that they built themselves. But the idea is the same. You kind of have control over a party of characters, and the UI was pretty much, they kept it as true to the old Infinity Engine games as they could. So a lot of it is very familiar. But I think Baldur's Gate is one of the more notable ones, and for me specifically, just because that was the first one that I had played, and I really enjoyed it. Brings back memories. I remember buying the game for the first time. Like I remember I bought it when I was visiting family in Chicago, and I didn't have a computer to play it on in Chicago, but I just bought it and had it in my suitcase for like a month because I was visiting family there for a long time.
I bet you're looking at the instruction manual.
Oh yeah, I was reading through the book like over and over again, and just like looking at the box art and reading the whole thing. I was like, oh man, I need to play this as soon as I get home. But yeah, good days.
All right, let's move on. Next on my list, I have Heretic. You ever heard this game?
I don't know. I don't think I have.
Heretic. This is one of Raven Software's earlier games. So back in the day, the way how Raven Software used to work is that id would make a game, and then Raven would make a game with that same engine, but like a different theme. So id made Doom, and then Raven used the Doom engine to make Heretic.
I just looked up screenshots, and now I do remember seeing this. I never played it, but I do remember this.
Heretic is basically Doom, except you're like a medieval sorcerer, warlock, whatever, something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the story exactly. I mean, I didn't really I mean, I think I read the story screen, but didn't really do much for me. But what I cared about was the game itself. See, I wasn't allowed to play Doom because it was too bloody. I played Chex Quest and I played Heretic. Heretic was like it was like borderline. It was like in between. It wasn't like as bloody as Doom, but it was still pretty dark.
Yeah.
And so it's basically exactly like Doom, except they did do one thing that Doom didn't do, and that is the ability to look up and down.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have that ability in Doom, because even if an enemy is above you, you still shoot towards that enemy.
Yeah.
It treats it as if they're on the same plane as you.
And actually, that's how they built the game. So the whole game is technically built on a 2D plane,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why you never get rooms that are on top of each other, if I remember correctly. Like you can go up ramps and everything, but there was never going to be a room that was directly below another room unless in the same level. And
Precisely.
that was because they built it on a 2D plane, and then they used vectors and math to basically make it look like it was 3D.
Yes. Yeah, it was a 2D game, and they just did tricks to make it look like you're moving in 3D space.
Yeah.
But Heretic, you had the ability to move up and down, and this was before using a mouse to aim was standard for first-person shooters. So I'm using the arrow keys to move the character, and like I think it was like control. Like I used left control to shoot, and page up and page down was look up and look down. I know this sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, but this was back when you gotta like put yourself into that position where this was before using mouse was standard for aiming and shooting. It makes perfect sense now, but we haven't evolved to that point yet at that time. We didn't look at a mouse and say, maybe this thing can work with aiming. I mean, like at that time, you look at your keyboard and you see that there's like 4 arrow keys. So for everybody, it's basically like, oh, obviously we gotta use those to move around. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so no one's like, oh, I'm gonna use my right hand to move around, but then I'm gonna use my mouse to aim. It doesn't make sense at that time. But regardless, I know I'm going off a tangent. It did add the ability to aim up and down. It was a very cool game. I remember like basically all the enemies are a reskin of, or I mean not a reskin, but just another variation of a Doom enemy. And same with all the weapons. You had your default wand that was like a pistol, and then you had another wand that acted like a shotgun. You'd have like a hammer that's basically the same as your punches, and then later you'd get like these gauntlets that shoot electricity, which is the same as a chainsaw. Another thing that Doom didn't do was that it had inventory. Like you had power-ups, and like you had like a chicken bomb, like that would turn other enemies into chickens. It was like a polymorph egg. That's what it was. And like some of the codes still work, like IDDQD to be invincible, IDKFA to walk through walls, and there was a code to turn yourself into chicken, and your point of view actually goes lower when you turn yourself into a chicken, and your weapon is a beak, like a chicken beak, and you'd peck. I mean, like it did a lot of things that Doom didn't do, despite it just being Doom and medieval.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it had like all sorts of different power ups that you could use, like a tome of power, where basically all your weapons, for I don't know, like a minute or something like that, would deal extra damage, and the shots were altered. Like your regular magic wand that would be like your pea shooter, it
Mm-hmm.
would shoot like 3 shots that spread.
Mm.
Um, like it basically boosted your weapons, whatever weapon you're using, and it was just really cool that they had all this stuff. But Heretic, really cool game. I'm not sure if it holds up today. I mean, I know Doom holds up today, but I don't know if Heretic holds up today or not. I'd like to assume that it does, since Doom does hold up.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
All right. Next game on my list is Fable. Arguably,
Chicken Chaser.
arguably Peter Molyneux's best game.
Oh, you're so naughty.
Yeah, those games were great. It's kind of a shame that Microsoft tried to milk that series with that weird Kinect game that they had. But
They had like a Mario Party type game as well.
Oh yeah, it was just a little saddening that they tried to do that with the games. But yeah, Fable was good. I liked that you were able to kind of pick an alignment, and the choices you made not only affected like the story and the outcome, but also how your character ended up looking. It would have visual effects on your character's body.
Yeah, it was very binary though.
It was very binary, but for the time, I think that was pretty new, because not very many games did.
Knights of the Republic.
Oh yeah.
That came up before Fable.
Yeah, that was also a very good game.
Better game.
Oh yeah, much better game. But I'm sorry, it doesn't fit our topic.
Yes.
Our medieval fantasy. But yeah, I liked Fable. I thought the story was pretty good, and it was really it was a fun game to play. And actually, I kind of want to. I think they have like a remastered version available on Steam that I might pick up at some point and go through it again.
From what I hear from many people, the second one was the best of all of them. But like the thing is, the second one is the only one that's only available on 360.
Yeah,
like all the other games are available somewhere else, like on PC.
mm-hmm.
Like you can play the original Fable, you can play the remastered Fable, you can play Fable 3 all on PC, but you can't play Fable 2.
Yeah, kind of sad.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yep.
Next I have Final Fantasy 6. So, some of the Final Fantasy games actually take place in medieval settings. I know a lot of you listeners probably associate Final Fantasy with steampunk or anime, shirtless anime guys. But at one point, trust me, I know this sounds very crazy and unbelievable, but at one point, Final Fantasy did take place in a medieval fantasy setting. It's mind-blowing. But yeah, Final Fantasy 6 in Japan, Final Fantasy 3 in the United States. I really like this game. Had a really cool, almost, it was borderline steampunk, but mainly medieval fantasy. It wasn't until Final Fantasy 7 that they fully jumped into the whole like anime steampunk theme.
Yeah.
But they still had knights and paladins and like castles and stuff in Final Fantasy 6, and just really like the cast of characters. Very large cast of characters, a lot of cool monsters that you could summon. It was a very interesting story about a world with no monsters, and then they find like a portal to another world where like everyone is a monster, and then they basically like all the monsters come into the world of humans, but like they immediately take the monsters as a threat, so they like create a genocide against the monsters, even though the monsters weren't a threat. So I mean, just very interesting story. And yeah, I really liked it. Final Fantasy 6.
All right.
Kevin, tell me about the next game on your list being Dark Souls.
Oh man. If I had actually played through one of the games, maybe it would be on my list, but I have not actually played through completely any of the games. I have played them, but not all the way through. But one game that is on my list is Dragon Age Origins. I think I really liked what BioWare did with Origins. They basically took the kind of like the Baldur's Gate style party-based RPG, but put it in a more action cinematic style. So you actually have cutscenes, and you've got your combat kind of takes place over the shoulder in a third-person view, but you still get to control and give out commands to your other party members. You can go up into this like tactical view, and you can kind of see everything from a more top-down perspective. But the Dragon Age lore was pretty good, and I personally think Origins was the best game out of all of them that they have out. I could not get through Dragon Age 2. Just did not like it at all. And yeah, I'm like partway through Dragon Age Inquisition, but I really haven't been extremely interested in finishing it. I mean, I play it occasionally, but I think Dragon Age Origins just had a personality to it that really worked well. And just the way that the story was told and the way that you played the game, it just felt really good.
All right. Last one I have that I want to talk about because I want to get this topic wrapped up. Magic the Gathering, even though it's not strictly a video game, there have been video game versions of Magic the Gathering. I mean, like the best way to play Magic the Gathering is the card game right now because the digital versions are complete garbage at this point. But I just want to talk about Magic the Gathering because it just has a very cool setting, very cool artwork, very interesting characters. And I mean, with the way how they've set up Magic the Gathering at this point with the planes, the planeswalkers going to the different planes, planes being pretty much like different universes that they travel to. It opens up Magic the Gathering to be more than just medieval fantasy. Like they have like anything that they want at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do have stuff like steampunk and a little bit of cyberpunk, but the majority of it is medieval fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I just love the artwork on the cards. The characters are very cool. You get a lot of story just from the characters, like the different planeswalkers. You know, like, oh, these two people have a rivalry, and then she turns this guy into a zombie version of himself because now he's like under her curse, and so now he's evil Garruk.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's just you know, I mean, I know there's like books that probably go into more depth on the stories, which I haven't read any of them, don't know anything about them, but you just get a lot of story just from like the different cards of the characters. And you know, I just love the world of Magic the Gathering. I mean, at this point it's like World of Warcraft has kind of gotten to a similar theme where they have like anything going on as well. Like they have like some steampunk and cyberpunk in there as well. I mean, they're doing their own thing where whatever type of character that they want to make, they can fit it into that world. But Magic the Gathering is, I do like its I prefer the more serious tone that Magic the Gathering has consistently stuck with, rather than the tone of World of Warcraft, where they have like a serious, they have serious parts as well as crazy goofy parts,
Mm-hmm.
and the crazy goofy parts, they're fine from time to time, but I feel like it has too much crazy and goofiness for my taste as far as like the way how they've set up the world.
Yeah.
So I mean, you want to chime in on Magic the Gathering as well, because I know you've played.
Yeah, I've played it quite a bit, but I never really got super into the hardcore aspect of it. Um, I do enjoy the game though. From a design standpoint, they've come up with a really brilliant gameplay loop that it's basically done so well that other card games are coming around that are trying to emulate it. And Magic the Gathering is to trading card games what World of Warcraft is to MMOs, and there's a lot of games that are coming out with slight variations and trying to be the next Magic killer. But Magic has persisted to be one of the most played and the most popular one, and it's really cool that they're able to keep the game going. But at the same time, I can see if I understand some people might think that they're uh, kind of some people may have issues with how they've handled some of the releases of like updates and things like that. But I think it's a really fun game and I do enjoy it. I don't know. I have played the digital versions a little bit, but I haven't really gotten super invested in those. But yeah.
Yeah. Any other games you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. I'll just kind of list one of them, but I'll talk a little bit more about this one. Next one on my list is Mount and Blade Warband. This game is kind of
Oh,
cool.
my favorite game, Mountain Blade.
Mountain Blade.
Mountain Blade. The blade that you find in the mountain.
Yep. This game is kind of really cool because there's no real story to it. There's no main quest line that you're trying to follow. The character that you make it's almost like a sandbox RPG, and you're starting from nothing and building up yourself as a person in this world, and you can kind of go about that however you wish. You can start off with you can go around taking quests on for some people. Some of them will have tasks that they need you to complete, like it might be sending a message to someone, or they're kind of simple quests. A lot of them are very fetch quest style, or they're going to be like bounty hunting type things. But you've got access to this entire country, essentially, this entire world. But traveling, you travel through a map view, so you're not actually physically walking through all of the land. But as you kind of select where you want to go, there might be encounters that you run into that will drop you into a third-person view or first-person view, and will let you actually do combat and things like that. But the main idea is that you're just kind of building yourself up, and so you could eventually become the king of like this realm, or like of an area, and start owning land. But you start off with pretty much nothing, and so you build up your name. You hire people to be a part of your war band, and whenever you do combat, you'll have these huge. It might start off really small, like you might have one or two people with you. Eventually you can have 30, 40 people, and you'll just have, when you go into combat, it almost feels like you're playing almost like the combat sequences of a total war game, but as if you were controlling one of the main characters in there. And you can like issue commands and do all this stuff. And they're coming out with a second game called Bannerlord. They've been showing that off quite a few times at like E3 and other events like that, and it looks really good. and just what the things that you can do in that game are pretty cool, and it allows for a lot of replayability because you're able to go about doing things the way you want. There's no real end goal. It's what you make up the story for yourself and kind of play the character as you want. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And a couple other games that I have on my list are Diablo and Path of Exile. I've been a huge fan of that isometric ARPG style game, and Diablo 2 is definitely one of the more notable games in that style.
Yeah, Diablo has a very cool theme and
Yeah.
world, but you know, I only played a little bit of Diablo. Well, I technically played through the entire game of Diablo 2, but in 15 minutes. So I was very angry that my high school classmate took me through the entire game in 15 minutes.
Yeah, Diablo 2 is great. And it's kind of cool to see what the developers of Path of Exile have done to that game. And just the amount of flexibility that you have in the types of characters you can make it's pretty cool.
All right.
That's my list.
All right. Listeners, what medieval fantasy games do you like? Write us an email, podcast@africanteens.com. And Kevin, one thing that definitely can handle some medieval fantasy. It's it can help augment your medieval fantasy fandom.
It doesn't have something to do
multiple ways.
It has something to do with the web.
Yes, you're close, very close. It's called DreamHost.
Ooh.
Their web service. They offer unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 US. If you use the promo code AdContinues during this special week in which we're talking about medieval fantasy games, that's AdContinues, one word, no spaces. Oh, way the 7 feet and get your free domain registration. And you can use all that to make your own website about medieval fantasy games.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about some gaming news and other news. Let's start sharing the screen over here so we can look at this news. Boom. Hello, everybody. Let's talk about this news on the Tomorrow Children, the latest game by Q Games. Q Games, known for like the Pixel Junk games. And the Tomorrow Children, it was like some crazy MMO about industry or something. I don't know. Ali was talking about that. I wish he was here on the podcast so he can talk about this and give his opinion because he actually played the Tomorrow Children. But it's like some crazy like industrial MMO. It's not like there's no combat in it. Like I think you're like building an industry or something. But regardless, they're shutting it down on November 1st. So that's like a year after it was released. Because basically they said that a lot of things factored into their decision to shutting it down due to it the amount of work it takes to run an MMO, updating content, attracting new players. I mean, they've been on top of attracting new players, obviously retaining players. I imagine it's very hard for them to retain players for an MMO that's made by an indie game, and it's very niche game as well. So, I imagine there's probably very few players at this point. And so, yeah, if you have the Tomorrow Children and you want to play it one last time before they shut it down, play it before November 1st. I wouldn't recommend going out and buying the game only to have it shut down later this year. That would be kind of unless you have that money to throw away. I mean, well, I don't know if it's thrown away, but unless you have that type of money that you don't mind buying a game and then knowing that you're not going to be able to play it ever again after November 1st, sure, go ahead. But yeah, I mean, if you already own the game, you know, you want to play it one last time before they shut it down, because you will not be able to play it ever again after November 1st. So, yeah. Speaking of games that will be no longer available, Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD getting removed from Steam very soon. It is currently available for $2 on Steam. So if you want some Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD, which is, you know, just an HD remake of the original Tony Hawk, pick it up for $2. Do it now, because it's going to be pulled and will never be on the Steam store ever again, because likely it is due to music licensing.
Yeah, I remember hearing about like the licenses for some of the soundtracks songs that they have in the soundtrack are expiring, and just because of how convoluted music licensing is, they can't really renegotiate those right now. But maybe there's a chance that they can. I'm not sure if that's something that is possible.
Also, it's like, do they want to renegotiate it?
Yeah,
do they want to spend the resources on renegotiating for a game that might not even be making them money right now?
Yeah, exactly. That's a time-consuming process and probably
money-consuming.
Yeah.
So, I picked it up as soon as I saw this article. I was like, oh, I might want to play Tony Hawk. I have fond memories of that when I was younger. So, $2, why not?
Yeah.
It will be pulled by tomorrow, I think. Yeah, July 17th. So, do it now.
Buy it now.
All right, let's move on. Kevin.
Yeah.
City of Brass, made by ex-BioShock developer Uppercut Games.
Yeah,
is this the same developer who was working on the Black Mirror or whatever it was?
The hand.
The Black Glove or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot what that one. I don't remember who the developer of that game was.
Okay, so it wasn't Uppercut Games. But anyways, so Uppercut Games released this trailer, this short cinematic trailer, very Arabian Nights inspired. There's like a flaming genie who does not crack jokes at you at all, and he's red, he's not blue.
So I was reading through some of the stuff about this game, so it looks like there will be multiple genies that you encounter.
Oh.
And each one will, like, they're not necessarily enemies or friends, but you can make deals with them. And I guess they will give you different abilities or different powers, or just, you know, upgrades and things for your primary weapons, which are your sword, which you have in one hand, and a whip in the other hand. And the article that I read about this said that they're taking inspiration from BioShock's mechanics. So basically how System Shock and BioShock, and now even also Prey, like how they all play, you have these...
So you tell me you can look in the trash can to find some money?
Yes. That is the extent of the inspiration that they're pulling from BioShock.
Perfect. But yeah, I mean, watching this trailer from of City of Brass, it's not showing much at all. I mean, it looks like there's going to be some sort of hand-to-hand combat. With like the very end, it shows some, like, I think it was skeleton dudes running towards you.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely looks interesting visually with the tomb coming out from the sand. Reminded me. I mean, like, a lot of it obviously reminds me of Aladdin. I mean, Aladdin being the most popular thing that is Arabian Nights inspired.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it reminded me mainly because of like the Cave of Wonders. You know, that cave with the tiger mouth coming from the sand.
Yeah.
that's what the tomb coming out from the sand reminded me of. But yeah, I mean, this looks like it's something that's going to be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in this one for sure.
Yeah, check out these screenshots. We got like skeleton dudes wearing turbans. This dude looking like he's going to give you a kiss.
He's leaning in for the kiss.
Yep. You got the sword and the whip in this screenshot.
Yeah, so they were saying that the combat mechanics would be kind of like BioShock. So you'll have, instead of plasmids, obviously you'll have your whip, and you'll be able to do different things with the whip. And I'm assuming that would be things like using it to climb. Hopefully they incorporate some kind of environmental stuff too, like being able to use it to climb or swing across areas. And then obviously you can use it to stun enemies and do damage to them. And then your primary damage weapon is your sword.
Yes,
it looks pretty cool.
And obviously you can see from the trailer and from the screenshots that's going for more of a cartoony looking style rather than realistic. I mean, there's nothing really realistic looking about this skeleton face.
Yeah,
but yeah, it looks very cool.
Agreed.
Let's move on. Let's talk about this humble Capcom Rising bundle. Mainly because like this is pretty crazy as to like Devil May Cry, DMC Devil May Cry, one of the best Devil May Cry games. Yes, I said it. The best Devil May Cry game. Yes, I said it. You could get it for $1. Like, how is this even right that they put it on the lowest tier? So on the Humble Bundle, for those of you who are living under a rock and don't know what Humble Bundle is, Humble Bundle, they usually have a bundle of games. Pay what you want, and depending on how much you pay, you get like games according to that tier. So the lowest tier is always $1, and this bottom tier you get Strider, Umbrella Corp, and DMC Devil May Cry. I completely understand Umbrella Corp being in the $1 tier because Umbrella Corp is like this failed Resident Evil spin-off multiplayer shooter. Completely understand this being in the bottom tier. Strider, it's an alright game. Sure. I mean, it's you getting it for $1, you're getting a good deal. But DMC Devil May Cry, that's a steal.
Yeah.
That is a steal right there. And then you go to the tier 2 and you have like Umbrella Corp DLC, which you're never going to use because you're never going to play Umbrella Corp. Then you have Dead Rising 2, Off the Record, Resident Evil HD Remaster, Resident Evil 0 HD Remaster, Resident Evil 6. I mean, this seems pretty decent for, the beat the average tier. And then pay $12 or more, you get Dead Rising 2, the base game. So Off the Record is like the expansion. Dead Rising 2 is like $12 or more, and Dead Rising 3 $12 or more. I don't know. Like I feel like this far end isn't really as worth it to me personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to point out that best Devil May Cry game, $1. What is wrong with this world?
I wonder if they accidentally meant to put DMC in the $12 and then the Dead Rising 2 in the $1. I don't know.
I think it's because like there's so many people have cried about this game, Devil May Cry, because they changed Dante and they're like, oh no, Dante's changed. I hate this new Dante.
That's
want my
interesting
old Dante.
because it's overwhelmingly positive on Steam right now.
Because it's a good game.
Yeah, I'm actually going to buy this bundle right now.
Have you played DMC Devil May Cry?
I have not. I don't own it, but I'm going to get it now.
It is an awesome game. And to be honest, like, okay, so the combat is great, but usually in these type of games where it's like all about the combat, the other type of gameplay is like they usually had something else in there, like puzzles or something to like put in between the different areas of combat, just to add some variety to the gameplay. In this game, they have platforming, and I'd say the platforming is even better than the combat, which is, I mean, the main focus of the game is the combat, and it's very good combat, but the platforming is even better. It is great platforming. So, I mean, this is a pretty good game. $1, it's a steal.
Well, I own it now, and I'm $1 poorer.
But you're one DMC Devil May Cry richer.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about that Lara Croft. Lara Croft. So we got the screenshot from Entertainment Weekly of what's her name? Person from Ex Machina. Why don't they put her name like on the top of the article?
Something. Alicia. It's in the first paragraph.
Is it?
Yeah. Alicia.
Oh, Alicia Vikander.
Yeah, Vikander. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Viking. Alicia Viking. As Lara Croft. I mean, she's dressed up as her from the rebooted game. I mean, obviously she's just wearing the same thing. Very, very simple outfit. I mean, it's hard to get that wrong.
Yeah.
You have to really be I don't know. It's impossible to get her outfit wrong. It's just so simple. She looks like her. She's hanging off a cliff. She's holding her abdomen. Probably got impaled there earlier.
Yeah. Just, all the injuries accumulating in one spot.
Yeah. So she's climbing a cliff while holding her impaled abdomen.
Yeah, she just needs one hand to climb.
Skill.
Mm-hmm.
Strength. But yeah, I mean that's all we got. We just got this picture that they released. She looks like her. That's pretty much all I can say. Hopefully it's a good movie. We can only hope.
Yeah, unfortunately, several game to movie and movie to game adaptations are not the best.
Yeah. But let's hope.
There were some that were good, but not all.
I am rooting for this to be a good movie. If it is not a good movie, that's unfortunate, and it is also unsurprising, but hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Speaking of video game movies, there are reports saying that it looks like Ryan Reynolds might be the star of a Rainbow Six movie. Why? Do we need a Rainbow Six movie?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a Rainbow Six movie, but
I mean, I definitely want to see more of the story of my favorite Rainbow Six character, SWAT team dude with shield. But I don't think Ryan Reynolds is going to play as the dude with the shield. I'm pretty sure he's more going to be the guy that I don't even think he's going to be the guy that like sledgehammers through the wall either. I think he's going to be like maybe, I don't know, dude with a gun.
It is very strange that they're making a Rainbow Six movie, but I mean, they could do a good job with it. But as I was just mentioning with the previous article, there are not very many good game to movie adaptations. And,
he looks like he might be playing former Navy SEAL John Clark from Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan series. Yeah, my favorite character,
Yeah.
Jack Ryan. Let's move on.
Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
So that's it for video game news. Let's talk about some comic stuff real quick, just for a moment. So Marvel Television and Freeform set cast for Marvel's New Warriors. So Marvel's New Warriors comic, like about like teenagers, young superheroes. It's gonna be a show on Freeform, which formerly known as ABC Family, aka ABC's equivalent to the CW. They have cast Squirrel Girl, and it is this young lady, Mulana Vaintrub, who has been in other things such as This Is Us and Silicon Valley. Have you watched either of those?
I do watch Silicon Valley. It is a great show.
And are you familiar with her in Silicon Valley?
Yep.
Okay. I am unfamiliar with her because I do not watch Silicon Valley. But she's going to be playing a Squirrel Girl. And yeah. And this dude, Derek Theller, is playing Mr. Immortal. This guy, Jeremy Tardy, playing as Night Thrasher. Like, these are all characters I don't know about. I'm not familiar with the New Warriors. Callum Worthy as Speedball, another character I don't know of. Matthew Moy as Microbe. Microbe,
probably.
Microbe. Kate Comer as Debris. I think Debris sounds right. The way how that's spelled, Debrii. So I don't know any of these characters other than Squirrel Girl. And Squirrel Girl, from what I understand, she is a joke character. She is not a serious character at all. She has like the ability to control squirrels, and she also looks like a squirrel, like in this picture up here, where she has like squirrel ears and she has buck teeth and she has a big tail.
Yeah.
And like she has enhanced human performance. So like she has, slightly super strength, slightly super speed. She performs better than a regular human.
Yeah.
But despite that and her ability to control squirrels, she has been able to defeat Thanos, Galactus, Doctor Doom, and Deadpool. Mainly because the writers think it's funny that she's able to defeat them. Because she's a joke character.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, her comics are supposed to be like a throwback to the Golden Age comics, where it was less serious and more about like, hello, good citizen, I'm here to save you.
Yeah.
It's less about the personal drama and more about just, saving the day with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I wonder, how they're going to implement Squirrel Girl into the show, because of, with that all that said, whether they're gonna keep her as like a joke character who can defeat Thanos with her squirrels, or if they're gonna like make her a more believable superhero. I use the word believable because that's I think that would be the correct word to use rather than realistic, because there's no such thing as a realistic superhero.
Yeah.
There's believable superheroes. There's
Batman
no such thing as a
totally
realistic
happen.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, exactly.
And Iron Man just need money.
Yeah, well, Iron Man can happen.
Yeah, Iron Man is happening actually technically.
Yeah, like just get Elon Musk in a suit
Yeah.
and have him fly around.
Well, I mean, the military is trying to build suits that are inspired by Iron Man.
That seems very impractical, though.
Yeah, and more so just like as armor as opposed to being able to fly around. But yeah,
All right. Do you have anything you want to say about this?
no, I am not familiar at all with Squirrel Girl. So
I'm familiar with Squirrel Girl, but not any of these other characters. And also with this being on Freeform, I mean the other show that they announced that's going to be on Freeform, the Cloak and Dagger, that looked pretty bad from the trailer. It looked like a bad CW show, superhero show. So and it made a lot more sense when my brother Ali explained that Freeform is ABC's equivalent of CW. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see myself watching this. I don't know. Maybe I might see the first episode, and then if it's any good, I'll continue. But my expectations for this are very low.
yeah,
Moving on.
yeah.
Speaking of female Marvel superheroes, we have Evangeline Lilly. Evangeline Lilly, who played as I can't remember what her name was in Ant-Man, the love interest.
Yeah.
She has posted a picture of the Wasp. So like it's more basically what she posted was a photograph of a flyer that has the Wasp on it, and it says D23 Expo, the ultimate Disney fan event. Yeah, it looks like they're advertising at this expo the Wasp. So it looks like the next Ant-Man movie, probably Ant-Man 2, will have the Wasp in it, even though they clearly hinted that at the end of Ant-Man.
Yeah.
This is more her like solidifying it, confirming it. Yes. Yeah. That's it. You have anything you want to add?
No.
All right. Let's talk about the Tick, from one insect superhero to another. So the Tick was around when I was a kid. There was a cartoon during the 90s, and then like in early 2000s, I think it was like 2001, there was a live action show. And the Tick is like a parody superhero. He has super strength, he's indestructible, and he is stupid. He like his battle cry is him yelling spoon, and that was only because he saw his reflection of his face while eating one day off of his spoon while he was trying to think of a battle cry, and he was like, this is perfect, spoon. So that's how dumb he is. And I watched the trailer of this new TV series, or this Amazon Prime series of the Tick, and I don't like the way how his suit looks at all. Like it looks like he's wearing an actual body armor suit rather than it being his body.
Yeah.
So like the 2001 Tick, if I could pull up a picture of that real quick. I mean, it wasn't like completely accurate because his face was completely exposed, but at the very least, it looked like they tried to make it look like it's his body. You know, they put abs on there. You know, made it look like it's, you know, a naked blue guy. But the new Tick they made the face more accurate by covering his face up, but the rest of his body looks like he's wearing body armor. Let me pull that up. Yeah, here it is. So here's the new version. And I know the listeners aren't able to see this, but Kevin, doesn't that look like he's wearing body armor? Because it looks more square.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really familiar with the Tick. I'm not quite sure, like, what he looked like previously, but
he's like a big naked blue guy. I mean, I guess to compare this, like the Tick looks more like Christopher Nolan Batman, while the 2001 The Tick looks more like the new Batman, Ben Affleck Batman.
Yeah.
Well, this one looks really terrible. Like, this doesn't look right at all. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not really digging the way how he looks in this new trailer. And also watching the trailer, it doesn't really look funny. It looks like they're doing silly things and expect people to be like, oh, that's silly, so that's funny. But I didn't find it funny at all. And Kevin, this is what the Tick looks like. This big blue muscular guy. Very simple design. It's hard to get that wrong.
I don't know. I feel like even in
this is probably more hard to get wrong than Lara Croft's.
Yeah, to me, actually, this kind of looks like he is wearing a bodysuit that's just really tightly conformed to his figure. I wouldn't see that as a naked blue guy. I still think that looks like he's wearing a tight bodysuit.
Well, the cartoon version?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. But regardless, I mean...
Especially because of the way his face is exposed, because, I mean, that definitely gives it away as so he can see and talk and breathe. Because if he was blue, I'm pretty sure his face would also be blue. But that...
I mean, like, my point being is the 2001 version looks like it's they're attempting to make it look like the original design, while the new version, I mean, it looks like he looks like he's wearing armor.
Yeah.
They look very different. It's like, how do you get the Tick wrong? That's very difficult. But yeah, I don't know. I'll wait to hear if this gets good reviews before actually watching it and wasting my time, because from watching that trailer, I'm like, no, thank you. I do not want to watch this. But yeah, let's move on.
Yep.
One more superhero thing. So Invincible, comic by what is his name? Robert Kirkman, person who did Walking Dead. So Invincible started off as being like a parody of Superman, or at least the son of Superman, who, like, in this universe, Invincible, his dad is basically Superman. It just, it's more of a parody. And later on in the comics, the comics become very dark, very bloody. In fact, maybe a bit too bloody. Like, you'd have like some panels where everything is red because of how much blood is all over the place. And it says the Invincible movie adaptation, this article says it's inspired by Logan and Spider-Man Homecoming, says Seth Rogen, who I think is going to be directing the movie. But that is an interesting combination of movies there.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the Spider-Man Homecoming, due to it being like set in high school, and Logan because they want to go for something dark and gritty. My guess, my prediction on this is it will be as good as neither of those two movies.
think that's a fair assumption to make.
I mean, I would like to see a good Invincible movie because I read Invincible up until like, I don't know, issue 100 and something.
Yeah.
I read it for a while and then I lost it at a certain point. But regardless, you know, I'd like to see a good Invincible movie, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And yeah, so take Logan, take Spider-Man Homecoming, think about how good both those movies are, and then turn your expectations upside down.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. Let's wrap things up because Game of Thrones should be coming on soon, right?
Yeah, it's already started here.
Oh, it already started?
Yeah.
Oh,
30
okay.
minutes ago for me, but it's okay. I have HBO Go, so I'll be able to still watch it.
You can watch it anytime.
Yep.
Use promo code AFContinues and it'll do jack. It'll do nothing for you. So, yeah, let's wrap things up. If you enjoy what you've been hearing, you can support us by liking us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review. You can subscribe to Google Play Music. You can contact us by email at podcast@AfterKings.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/AfterKontinues, where you can see me just melting away. I'm so hot.
Yeah.
And all those things I just said, they can be found on the website, www.afterkeys.com. You can give me a tweet. I'm at SayedStafa. That's at SayedStafa. And Kevin over here has a Twitter as well that he uses more often than me, and his Twitter is...
I am at KS That's KSTREHAN.
And I'd like to thank my guest host for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you, Stafa, for having me on.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
And thank you, listeners, for getting this far into the podcast. Unbelievable. I didn't even think I thought you were gonna like stop like maybe 20 minutes ago, sometime when I was talking about Lara Croft's outfit. But I appreciate that you're still here. And with that said, I'm your host, Stafa. I'll see you guys next week on episode 285. Oh, and if you're watching this on YouTube, click over here on my face to subscribe. There is a icon, that continues icon over my face, and over here there's last week's episode, and over here is the week before that. Well, actually, last week's episode had no video. So 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Bye.